Lord Wolley, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Let's start with Rishi Sunak.
Good morning.
I mean, this is a significant moment in history. What are your feelings when you see somebody like Rishi Sunak, a British Asian Prime Minister of Indian descent? Here he is leading the country. You have really been standing up for getting more people from different backgrounds to be more connected to politics. You've sort of dedicated a lot of your life to that. What was your initial thoughts when you saw this?
Yes, 30 years of campaigning to get black and brown faces in high places, and to see now that the Prime Minister of Indian descent is a big deal. And I think a lot of people in this country and around the world will look at us and say, you can. I mean, you can be what you see. And here we have a first Prime Minister of Indian descent. It's a very big deal.
But what difference would he make, being Asian, being Indian? What difference would he make to other Asian and Indian people in this country? I mean, what can he do?
I think it's aspirational. I think it's aspirational, first and foremost. But, of course, beyond the aspiration, you need the policies. And you would hope that Rishi will bring, I guess, another lived experience to tackle persistent race inequality that now is on his doorstep. He has to now deliver. And I hope, first and foremost, the Conservative Party will stop those faux culture wars. We'll bring nations together. I think in the past, sadly, we've seen policies that have tended to pit poor white people against poor black people. We want an end to that. We want pathways to success. As you know, I'm here at Homerton College, part of Cambridge University, and we had a Black History Month celebration. Over 300 students and people from Black excellence, lawyers, surgeons, heads of houses, CEOs, bankers. And actually, it was a celebration of what black people can do in this country. And when we saw 200 students from across Cambridge University, they celebrated what they could be. I still think there are people on my estate today who've had so much fun they don't want to go home.
Yeah. I mean, just with Sunak, though, yes, aspirational. However, you look at the cabinet he's appointed. He's appointed somebody called Kim Badenoch. Kim Badenoch is now one of the things she is responsible for is equalities. Yet you yourself have been critical of her in the past because she has been at the centre of the culture wars, whether that's trans rights or the teaching of race within schools, and also, you know, has been very clear when she believes that there isn't structural racism in this country. So when he appoints people like that, does that nullify everything? Does that give us an indication that it doesn't really matter whether he's British Asian?
It depends. It depends on whether they continue these policies and this rhetoric. You know, ultimately, they'll be judged at the ballot box, and it'll be a very tight election. And I, for one, and many others, will be encouraging all our communities, African, Asian, Caribbean, but also, you know, white working class, to register to vote and say, look, do we want a government? Do we want policies that unite us, that show pathways to success, that get us out of poverty? Or do we want policies that pit one community against another? They will be judged. And I would say to Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman, stop the culture wars. Bring us together. Show leadership. And then we can all excel. We can all have a place to which we belong. We don't want the rhetoric that panders to cheap votes, pandering to prejudice. We want the rhetoric that gives us the belief that we can get to the highest office, that we can become heads of houses in Oxford and Cambridge colleges and be CEOs of top companies. That's what people want to hear. That's what people want to see, that there can be education for us to excel and then employment pathways for us to sit in the highest office. We had Reverend Al Sharpton with us via Washington, D.C. And he said, when we have I guess platforms like this, we can go from the street to the C-suite. And you just saw people glow from that type of inspiration.
Lord Wolley, as you said, you've had 30 years of campaigning over this. I know one of the people that you've been advising, one of the people you've been talking to is King Charles, isn't it? That he was interested, he wanted to talk to you about it, to talk about hope and opportunities, and how much do you think his involvement, his engagement can make a difference?
Well, he was here where I'm sat right now about a year ago, and he said to me, look, I'm here, Simon, to support you to embrace diversity. We have a plaque in one of our dining halls, and he said, diversity is our nation's greatest strength. I mean, what's not to like about that? And I think that if you acknowledge it and have a pathway for it to excel, one, you bring people together, and two, you give people the hope that they can be whatever they want to be. And so when I had the then heir to the throne and now the king supporting me on that endeavour, I think it sent a good positive vibe right across Cambridge and beyond, that we have good allies in high places that are embracing diversity.
And what's that like? I mean, I think, is that a picture of the two of you together that I can see behind you there? What's it like when you're there with him, when you're chatting to him, when he's asking questions like that? Right.
Well, I mean, I speak to him like I speak to you, with honesty, with integrity, and say that this is not my problem, this is our challenge. And he'll lean into me and he'll say, Lord Wolley, what can I do to help? And I say, well, you're the future king. Now the king, convene the spaces where we can acknowledge the challenges that are not pathways for everybody to go from A to B to success. And we must ensure that there are. And so he'll convene meetings with business leaders and politicians and academics, and we set out a plan to help young people. And actually not just young black and brown people, but white working class people too. Yeah. That he knows there are pockets in these countries where they are not excelling, and he wants to help. I hope it continues, by the way.
Yeah, Lord Wolley, you made a really important point there when you mentioned white working class. This is really a discussion about class as much as it is about race, isn't it? And I think this is the thing that I think we look at people like Rishi Sunak and say, well, actually, OK, you might be Asian, but are you in touch with those Asians that are working class? People like yourself, you're a black kid from Leicester. You know, but not all of us get to become...
Estate in Leicester.
No, yeah, and not all of us get to become peers. Not all of us get to become presenters on Good Morning Britain. Not all of us get to become Prime Minister of this country. What is he going to do for all of those people, white working class, black working class, Asian working class? What are they going to do for those people who don't have the opportunities? That, I think, is the most crucial thing.
Yeah. It's critical. And, one, you have to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge the blockages, the obstacles that are people facing. Now, you know, he's not from a working class background, but neither is King Charles. But you can still have empathy. You can still recognise that these are the things that I have to put right. But if you're in denial of structural racism, denial of that class divide, then nothing changes. So we want good people around the table. We want the acknowledgement there are still these persistent inequalities. And then we need a plan, a grand plan. Bring all the greatest minds together. You know, that over the last few years, we've been suffering from COVID-19. And we thought, how are we going to get out of this? Actually, great minds, science, pulling together, got us out of it. Yeah. We need to do that in our society right now because, you know, we're in a critical situation. People finding themselves in deep poverty. A grand plan, vision, and leadership.
Thank you.
Well, it's really interesting to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Lord Simon Woolley there. Thank you.
Charlotte.
And thanks also to Quentin and Luciana this morning.